Leslie, even Bob Woodward, I think we'll all agree Bob Woodward is not part of my vast right-wing conspiracy with my conservative friends. Even he said this is on the president's head because he has, as Ari said, an obligation to lead. Doesn't he have an obligation to at least talk to them? He talks to the Russians. He's going to talk to the new president of Iran, but he can't talk to Speaker Boehner?
Well, it's funny because when you talk about the people on your side of the aisle and drinking that Kool-Aid, I have quote after quote after quote of Republicans, even some that work here, that talk about how this is a suicide caucus. The president doesn't need to negotiate. And the Republicans are delusional, Sean, if they think the president is going to negotiate to defund, negotiate to repeal, to replace
Leslie,
legislation.
So the president of the United States,
in his possession,
we're 10 days away from a default. His own Secretary of the Treasury says it will be a catastrophe.
Absolutely, and not just for America, but for the world.
And he won't even talk. He won't even discuss.
He doesn't need to talk. Democrats have tried to talk to Republicans 7 times. 195 Democrats and 21 Republicans now say put it to a vote, a clean vote. And we're not getting it from Boehner.
435 members of the U.S. House. That is the branch that is closest to the American people, which tells you the reason why this is happening right now, the majority of the American people do not want this bill. They're willing to do whatever they can. Yes, they do not want this bill.
We're going to get into that separately. I think the question, Nina, you're more objective.
I'm in Washington.
You're in Washington?
I talk to people there.
Is that a blessing or a curse? I'm not really sure.
But let me point out an irony here. Let's say the president did negotiate. Let's say he made some movement on reforming entitlements, some of which he's agreed to in the past on Medicare and Social Security. Let's say Speaker Boehner got a deal out of this White House. Those Republicans who started this over Obamacare won't go along with that. They started down this path, which was an unwinnable fight. They knew they couldn't win. They knew they didn't have the Senate. They knew they didn't have the White House. They knew this was an unwinnable fight. They want to defund Obamacare, and they're waiting for Obama to blink, and it's not going to happen.
But they've come down 3 steps. Their last offer was exemptions, special exemptions for big business and the subsidy exemption for members of Congress. Is that so unfair?
I would say the better strategy on the part of the defund Obamacare crowd would be to, for example,
am I part of that crowd?
To ally themselves with unions.
Proudly.
Labor unions have problems with Obamacare, but their strategy is based on taking down Republicans who disagree with their tactics and primarying them from the right.
If the president gets away with this no negotiating strategy, both on the debt limit and Obamacare, then any leverage that Republicans have, and they are in control of the House, is gone. Why would they do that?
Well, of course. Also, the president said, I won't negotiate while they're holding something over my head. But that's the only way there's negotiations. He holds something over the Republicans' head, and the Republicans hold something over his head. I just want to add one other thing that a lot of Americans don't know. I do believe that the president thinks so politically that hurting Americans is okay for his strategy. And I want to give one example, and I'd love the liberals on this panel to respond to. Why, since sequester, has the president not allowed tours of the White House? It costs virtually nothing. And there's a reason. He's petulant, he's immature, and he wants to hurt the American people.
We're going to get into those examples.
I would love liberals to respond to that particular thing the president did.
Because he wants to inflict harm.
Yes, exactly.
You're a liberal.
Hurting the American people, when you say hurting the American people, I don't think of one party, and that's you look at the Paul Ryan budget, which hurts women, children, infants. We can go on and on and on about how they'll do everything possible to make sure that you don't fund middle-class families, working families, you don't put the American people back to work. That is hurting the American people.
You want to know what's hurting? Wait, you want to know what's hurting American families? $17 trillion in debt. You know what's hurting American families? $90 trillion in unfunded liabilities. You know what's hurting American families?
Sean, wait a minute.
You care about young kids? Stop stealing their future and placing the burden of debt on their shoulders.
I hear
They'll
that.
pay that.
I hear that.
You hear that as real numbers.
When mothers are talking about how they're going to feed their kids today, we're not talking. That's a completely different conversation.
And you're willing to bankrupt the country because you think it's a good cause.
If we're talking about kids, why aren't we talking about not taking away food stamps from those that are less privileged? If we're talking about kids, why are we not giving them student loans to get an education? And by the way, Dennis, this is why I think we shouldn't have tours of the White House right now, because we just had a crazy woman try and perhaps kill the president in Washington. Every other week there's some kind of a massacre if somebody's nuts and gets a gun in their hand.
To know that one day some woman would try to drive into the Capitol, I don't buy that. president wants Americans to hurt so that he can win politically. Period.
This is a wild goose chase that we've just been led down. No offense. But the president is really they're trying to do as much damage as they can to get people to feel the pain, to try to get the public on their side. Here's the problem. The president goes on national television and says our veterans, our children, all of these things. The House goes through, passes bills to address those issues, and the Senate won't take them up. You know, my friends on the left keep talking about a clean vote in the House. Just the president's demanding now that we have a clean vote in the House. Why don't they have a clean vote in the Senate on defunding Obamacare with only 51 votes instead of the 60 that they put in place right now?
Stay right there. And welcome back to Hannity. Now, you just heard from two doctors about the disastrous and life-altering impacts Obamacare will have on you and your family. So my question is, why are Democrats so hell-bent on implementing this law and trying to convince you, the American people, that, yes, politicians know better than doctors? Leslie Marshall, we got, let's see, Obamacare costing 66,000 jobs in Illinois. From the Canadian National Post today, Canada's national government health care is facing a fiscal crisis, as is Great Britain's. Why do you want to implement here what has failed there?
Well, first of all, the system that we have here is not the system that they have in Canada or in Great Britain. Secondly, and I know you guys get tired of hearing it, I'm married to an orthopedic surgeon, co-own a medical center. And those physicians, if you had asked them, were the insurance companies allowing people to die, in a sense, before? And the answer would be yes. My husband constantly is told that he cannot send people to PT, that he cannot operate, that something isn't covered. Doctors take a Hippocratic oath. They can't just do it for money. And the reason you said, I hope I don't have to see you to the cardiologist, is because of that preventative care, which is Democrats like myself want that for everybody, for people that have pre-existing conditions and people that need
I don't like the system either, but
healthcare.
There are conservative solutions out there.
It's our party. We can stop what we want. We can vote how we want. Defund what we want.
We can do what we want. We can do what we want to.
It's our party. We can do what we want. It's our party. We can say what we want. It's
Da-da-dee-da-dee, Republican Party, reppin' GOP, doing whatever we want. This is our house, this is our room. It's our floor, we can say what we want to. It's our bill, what we want to. Yeah.
All right, so did Saturday Night Live go too far with that rendition of John Boehner and Michelle Bachmann? Who say went too far? Who say it's just about right? Leslie's right on top. All right, Dennis.
I want John Boehner in a tanning booth, though. I thought it would have been funnier.
He's too pale in that video. Okay.